Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar today, The Science of Generating More Referrals. And while we're having people come in, it'll take just a few minutes here. I figured we'll pause, but in the practice session, Allie and I were talking about Thanksgiving is on our minds. This year, unfortunately, I am not making the Thanksgiving meal this year, but we were talking about what our favorite dishes were. Maybe you could drop in the chat, give us a little bit of inspiration there. And Allie, what's your favorite dishes?
So I have a really good cornbread stuffing recipe. So I think that's probably up at the top of my list, along with, roasted Brussels sprouts. I think go really good with the turkey. So
yeah, I was saying my son is a big Brussels sprout guy and he's only 13. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm always looking for ideas though. So if anyone has them, I'm in.
Mine is, I do this amazing corn pudding and it sounds like it's a vegetable, but there's definitely more cream and butter than there is corn. So I don't know, it's questionable.
That's true. That's true. Oh, baked brie. I'd agree with you, Josh.
All right, well, let's get started here. I'm Amy Galli. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing at FMG, and I have with me here today, Allie McCarthy. She is the founder and president of Amplify Your Voice. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about the significance of referrals in an advisory firm growth. So some of those components like understanding Net Promoter Score to drive client satisfaction. Allie's going to talk about the science behind the power of emotional intelligence. And then we're going to finish up with how content and the words you use really impact client engagement and advocacy. So I'm going to kick it off to Allie. What's driving advisory firm growth?
Thank you, Amy, and hello, everyone. It's really great to be with you today. So as we get to jump into the content a little bit, I just want to give some of my background. So I have been a CMO and head of marketing for many years, so definitely aligned with the team here, FMG, from a functional perspective. But I recently started my own company, Amplify Your Voice, for fractional CMO work within our space, and then also was able to then marry up my work with emotional intelligence. So I started doing research back in 2015 to really understand the relationship between the advisor and the client and what strengthened that bond and how did they grow a business around that coaching relationship that you all have. And so today we'll talk a little bit about my research findings and, more importantly, the foundation of it, which is emotional intelligence. So it perfectly aligns with referrals, because the spoiler alert is if you have higher EQ, you get greater referrals. So there's your EQ tie-in for the day. But it'll be important for you to kind of understand how it all comes together. So we'll start the discussion a little bit about just the topic of referrals in our industry and what is the trend. And here, the recent wealth management RIA Edge study just reconfirms that over the last 2 years, we're really not seeing much of a difference in that referrals are still the number one growth generator for advisors in our business. And also, obviously, new business from existing clients. And what you see, interestingly enough, on the bottom is how you're seeing that marketing, if you put those together, you can start to use digital marketing to amplify some of these efforts. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as well. And John, I see I'm also monitoring the chat, so I'll try to answer some of your questions and comments as they come through in real time, so we can kind of save some time at the end and not have to revisit. So is that referrals from COIs? So that is not, that's just client referrals is how I understood the study and how they were asking that question. If we can roll to the next slide, it's interesting. So Chuck says you need a plan. So this is from the Schwab RA benchmarking study, and it shows that firms that have a referral plan, this might be where your COI comes in, and also referral business partner plans are growing at a more rapid pace than other firms. So your top performing firms have a plan in place. And if we go forward to the next slide, it really kind of sets up what we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about the factors that contribute to referrals. The first being NPS. So if you're not measuring net promoter scores, you might want to consider this as a way to measure your client satisfaction, which can tie to how you are able to see referrals over the course of your business. The second is going to be emotionally connected clients. So the better you are connected with your client, the more apt they are to talk about your services to others. So we're going to talk a little bit of how to do that on a day-to-day basis. And then interestingly, Susan, who couldn't be here today, was just recently on a webinar with Y Charts, and they had unveiled some of their recent research, which showed that 89% of clients they were surveying who did have advice through a financial advisor talked about communication being the top factor in providing referrals. So I thought that was very interesting. So let's go into NPS a little bit. And so when you think about NPS, go ahead one more, please. It was something created by Bain in 2003, I believe. And it really zeroes in on asking very simple questions. So this has been around in our industry for a while, growing more so in the advisory space. But you're really getting to the heart of client satisfaction because it's asking how likely you are to refer your company to someone else. And so if you look at that, and as you're measuring this to clients, and I know sometimes we don't want to necessarily survey our clients for fear of it might bubble something up. But I think what's nice about this in an open-ended box for comments, it really creates the power of being able to show that you're actively listening to your clients too. So are you willing to refer me? And then asking a little bit about why or why not might be able to give you some insights as to what is working in your practice and where you might be able to go deeper. So if we look at just how to score it, because I think it's pretty simple. So go ahead and go forward, please. So if you surveyed 100 of your clients and 60 of them were 9 or 10, so they were your net promoters, 30 were in the middle, so those don't count in the calculation, and 10 were 10%, or 10 of them, which would be 10% of the 100, weren't willing. So they were 5 and under. You would just simply take the 60 minus the 10, so the top minus the bottom, and you would have your NPS score. And if you roll forward one, this shows that the average NPS score in our industry is around 45. So, and this is actually looking at almost 64,000 respondents. So it gives you a good gauge that 45 number is a true number in our space. And I think what's interesting about looking at client satisfaction through the lens of NPS is it's really giving the opportunity for the client to open up all the things that they value beyond just the investment management. And so much, and Amy will talk a little bit about communications in a bit, but when you think about really all the value you bring beyond just investment management, here's an opportunity to really lean in on that and being able to go deeper with your clients. So let's go forward one more, Amy, please. Now, this is interesting because this is research from Julia Littlechild, who has done a lot of NPS work in our industry, and also IWI. And it shows over the last few years, sort of the trend of the net promoter score and the advisors that they're measuring and how it's tied to satisfaction. So if you remember, the average was about 45. So we've been trending above average a little bit as an industry, but showing the satisfaction level of it being high and loyalty being high. And I thought that was very interesting because this really kind of proves out how NPS can tie into client satisfaction and referrals. But what's also interesting about their research, if you go forward one, is it shows how emotions start to creep in. And if you look at some of these questions, and what this chart is showing is 82, if you just look at the top line, so 82% of the respondents, this is the client talking, they say that feeling financially secure is important. is a very important thing. But only 52% strongly agree that they feel financially secure. So there's this gap in satisfaction. And so where you're starting to see a trend on this page is it really talks to emotions, feeling financially secure, feeling in control, feeling confident. And so these are things where even if your client is satisfied and willing to refer, and you're measuring that through your NPS, that is only one leg of the three-legged stool. The other part that's very important is how emotions are impacting their decisions, and what are you to do and how can you manage that in the course of your business. So that's the second part of our agenda today, is talking a little bit about emotional intelligence. You can go forward, Amy. And we're going to talk about what it is and why it's important and how you can infuse it into your practice. So emotional intelligence is funny because when Susan and I were prepping for this event, she said, you know, Allie, I never even thought that emotional intelligence was about me. I thought it was just about advisors being able to read emotions in their clients more acutely. And I thought that was interesting because there's a lot of things that are baked into emotional intelligence, but it starts with you and in service to others. So the classical definition is emotional intelligence enables you to understand and control your emotions so that you can better understand and relate to others. Because if you can't understand your emotions and how they impact you, then you certainly make it harder to relate to others or identify those in others. If you could go to the next slide. Here I created this equation so that it would just be super easy. So it's all about you looking in the mirror first, kind of saying that, you know, there might be days where we are using more emotions in our decision making than others. It's not every day, but they are present in everything we do. And so being self-aware of that and then being able to regulate that allows you to then go into the world and be able to interact with others. And that could be you interacting with your clients, your partners, your children, your teammates, anyone else that you are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So EQ is not just about your practice as an advisor. It's also about you as a leader, you as a parent, you as a teammate. And so it really makes sure that you in this coaching role that you have signed on as an advisor or a leader are in service to others. And that's what that last part is. It's about us. Like if you really care and you want to do a better job and grow a deeper, more meaningful relationship with your client, then you do want to look inside and do everything you can to do for self-care and to make it better for you as you go through your day-to-day business. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that it shows up in your practice in a moment. And so they call EQ soft skills. And I would say there's nothing soft about soft skills. So here's some hard data that shows where this is important and why it's important. So you can be book smart, IQ, or you could be people smart, EQ. And more than half, 58% of your job performance is actually EQ, being people smart and being able to relate well with others. Top performers in companies, they have higher EQ. And this makes sense. I mean, think about the people that are able to actively listen when their teammates are going through something, being able to display a vision for the company, being able to handle stress when times are difficult. You might be acquired and, you know, you might be trying to blend your teams. That can be a very stressful and uncertain time. So managing stress is also a part of EQ. So it's not only just about being an active listener and being empathetic, it's also being able to be optimistic and handling stress in a healthy way. And then people with higher EQ make more annually than they do than their lower EQ counterparts. And a Capgemini research found that in the age of digital transformation that our industry's in right now, there is a 6 times increase in demand for emotional intelligence skills because we are trying to use digital technology to make the client experience frictionless, right? We're trying to make everything from end to end completely seamless. So we're using technology more. We're using technology more for AI to be an enabler and help us do things faster. And so we really want to make sure that we're looking at how these skills of interacting with others come into play as we're trying to balance this drive for efficiency and a frictionless experience on the technological side. And lastly, to kind of bring this home a little bit, if you go forward, like I said, my study just back one, please. Yeah, thank you. That advisors that have higher EQ have 2 times the amount of referrals than their lower EQ counterparts. And this to me naturally makes sense, but I'm so happy to have proven it out empirically. It's because you will have a limited view of your business and the value that you bring if you're not being able to communicate effectively to your clients and being able to hear them, listen to them, explain how the solutions you provide extend beyond investments, how to bring in the family, how to go across generations. All those things are beyond just the table stakes of hitting a return. It's really helping them. If you think of Amy will talk a little bit about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and kind of that value stack. And if you think of that layer of security that you're providing, well, those are the investments, those are the table stakes. But as you move up and as the clients move up and they have some of those layers of security in place and feel confident about that, they start to need you differently. And you have to be able to adapt and flex and be able to serve them in those ways. And those might be, setting up estate planning for an entire family or charity, or, you might have been the advisor that they started with, and now you have to kind of be the advisor that grows with them as their wealth grows. So I think it's really important to think that, these are the ways that it's relevant to your business. So go ahead and go forward one. And I want to spend a couple minutes on this, and then I'll turn it back over to Amy to talk about how you can take this and infuse this into your communications. So as a financial advisor practice, whether you're an advisor or a different type of service in our industry, you have the ability to work in your business and on your business. And so Kits has put this box chart together specifically for financial advisors. So that will be the illustration that I'm using. And then you can see that this is sort of my overlay on it, is that EQ is surrounding you in every part of the business that you're working on. And so if you go, we'll go, kind of go around from the top and then clockwise, top left, and then clockwise from there. So if you are working on your technical and your competency skills, and this is again like your investment acumen and being able to understand Medicare and Social Security and all the different areas that are important to building the foundation of a good financial plan for a client, you are working in areas of EQ that are self-regard and self-actualization. So self-actualization is that I'm a lifelong learner. I'm passionate about what I do. I want to learn more. I want to get better at what I do. That's actually part of EQ. Self-regard, I'm confident. I'm confident that I can explain this to my client, that they can understand it, and that I have a good grasp of the different types of investments that are available to us and services that we can provide as a firm. Then if you look at the advisor or the team that's external facing, so here you have to have empathy, right? You have to be able to put yourself in my shoes and be able to understand where I'm at in my life. I am the sandwich generation, right? Taking care of my parents and my children. And so this is something that you will approach that differently than, my niece that is a business owner that's a thriving millennial, or my mother that's a boomer. And so this ability to be able to pivot and flex and be able to use empathy and active listening skills That's you flexing some of your EQ muscles there. And then your interpersonal skills. Can I connect with you? Can I really ask you how you're doing? Not just great. Okay, let's get started. No, how are you doing? Really going a little bit deeper and really starting to have those clients connect and open up with you and feel that they are heard and understood. Now I'm going to have to promote my business. It's what I'm doing with you today, right? I'm talking about what I do best. So as a salesperson, I have to have optimism. I have to see the life through a glass half full perspective. Otherwise, you are not going to sell anything, right? And you have to be able to be a little bit assertive, and you have to be able to communicate how you feel and what you feel is important in a way that people can receive that information and understand. A little bit different than aggressive, which means I don't care about how you feel. Assertive is I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to respect that you have emotions too to receive that. So I'm going to be able to adapt and flex as I'm giving that information over to you. So you might use that also when you're trying to solve some complex problems that clients have from an estate planning need. And then we'll bring it on home. So when you are a business owner or you are in your practice and you're trying to figure out which digital technology you're going to use to be able to weave everything together in a frictionless environment for your client, you're solving problems and dealing with stress management. This is also a part of EQ. And so, as you can see, advisors that do this really well, you are absolutely growing your business at a higher rate than advisors that think that soft skills are not very relevant to their business. So let's go ahead and come back a little bit to how can we infuse this into our business and how can we infuse this into our communications. So the next slide, please. EQ is one of those things that's teachable. So IQ and personality are set. You are who you are in that perspective. It is how you see the world, and that is fine. EQ is something that you can learn over time. And I say this a lot because I do a lot of mentoring and I do a lot of training, and I work with obviously as a female coming through in our industry, have been in a lot of female networking groups and things along the way. And a lot of people want to say that women are better at EQ than men. And it is empirically proven that that is false. What is interesting about the difference between the genders is that we flex those different EQ muscles. And women might be higher when you score. Women score typically higher in empathy, and men typically score higher in being assertive. And so to me, all that says is that's why you would have an awesome team and you can learn from each other, but you can also learn from an individual perspective. So I have a question. Do you train on EQ? I absolutely do that. My specialty is the financial services industry, which is relevant to the conversation that we're having today. And the next one is, how does this show up in your communications? So the next slide, please. If you are looking at what we talked about today, you are fundamentally going to change how you talk about your business and the value you bring, because you automatically are going to be more tuned in to your clients, to their needs, and to what's most important to them, and actually going back to the work you really enjoy. I know when we trained advisors, when I was managing a practice management group, to a T, every single financial advisor we came into contact with said, I got in this business to help others. And I think that what this is it's just like this armature that allows you to go forth into what you do and what you do best. And it's a structure in which to present that to the outside world. So here, if you're infusing EQ into your communications, naturally, you are going to be able to abate the fear that your clients have. We all know investing is the number one stressor. Finances are not something that people, are comfortable talking about necessarily with their partners and or their families, and or they don't want to admit they don't know anything about investing. And so they don't have the confidence there. So you will help to abate those fears of investing with your clients. That will absolutely be reduced. Their willingness to change and receive in the information that you need to convey to them to get to their goal. They will be a little bit more open to change. Your bond with them will strengthen, which means it will nudge every other person trying to come from them out. And then referrals, I've already told you a couple times, are going to grow double. So that's what you can look forward to. So to wrap up my section, go ahead and EQ, as we saw in that box chart, it's everywhere in your practice. You just might not have known you were flexing those muscles so beautifully. So what you can do today is you can look and say, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm not doing all of these well. That's the second part. You can assess your skills individually or your team's skills, and you can get better at them. That's what I'm here for. And the third, this is where FMG comes in, because they're going to help you take what makes you authentically you and activate that from a marketing perspective. And so I'd love to turn it over to Amy. Thank you for your time and attention. And I really want you to show how you can start to put this in your practice. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Allie. I'm excited to talk about how content and the words you use really impact client engagement and advocacy. Allie talked in the beginning about referrals, that people who were giving referrals really liked the communication style and mentioned that as one of the main factors. 89% of clients said communication was a top factor in providing the referrals. So part of that is focusing on the topics that clients care about. So you can see on the right-hand side, there's this gap between the services expected and the services received. So thinking through those types of topics and hitting on the things that are most important to them and where those gaps are. So where those gaps are between the expectations and the services rendered. So really talking about topics that are on their mind before they go out and they're Googling and they're looking at different media publications and things like that. You really want to control that narrative by getting out there to those types of topics that they want to hear. So there's so much opportunity out there for those firms that offer a full range of services and partner with other key professionals that feel like they're closing those gaps. So Allie had mentioned kind of that diagram of how you communicate, the focusing on the topics that clients care about most, like that foundational level of managing money. That is your asset allocation. Those are the, taxes, debt, cash flow, things like that, the things that they would expect to hear from their financial professional. And then, as you go up that pyramid, they're achieving their goals. So that starts to get into, what's important to them. So things like paying for my kids' college, or, making sure that I have healthcare and that I'm set for retirement, or supporting charities that are really important to me. So now you're starting to move up that pyramid. And then peace of mind, so really taking care of loved ones. So ensuring that you have that legacy in place, and that they are in control, and things that are important to them, even more important to them, like what do they do with their discretionary time and freedom from worry. And at the top there is that fulfillment, so accomplishing life's purposes and leaving that legacy. When we talk about referrals, I've mentioned this before, and think about the last referral that you gave. You probably liked that person because you had some sort of connection. Like anybody can come in and do the things that I'm supposed to do. So someone came and, fixed my plumbing, they fixed my leaky sink and they did it just right and everything was great. But he also, took time to come back to call me afterwards and ask how it went and do some extra touches. That person was very referable to me. So if you think about those last referrals, you probably had some sort of personal connection as well. This was a social post from Samantha Russell, our chief evangelist. I love this one. In this industry, we tend to use a lot of jargon and a lot of acronyms and things that just regular investors wouldn't connect with, right? So things like I provide holistic financial planning, or I help people with financial freedom or integrated advice. I don't necessarily know what those things might mean, and they might be a different picture to different people, right? So the things that we recommend is start writing so a 6-year-old could, get it. So using regular words. So I streamline complicated finances, right? I reduce taxes in retirement. I help people have a plan for income in retirement, or I help them understand their investments. Those are things that even a 6th grader would know what I'm doing or what I'm looking to accomplish. So we did a little experiment. We went out and we found some financial advisors' websites, and we took content from their websites and how they explain the services that they offer, and we rewrote it thinking about this with EQ in mind, right? So we found we provide estate planning services for high net worth families. It's good. Like, I kind of understand what they're saying, but what about, we craft legacy plans to care for our clients' families. So adding that care and bringing in their family and what that means to them, really changes what it's saying. Another one, we help clients minimize taxes. That's a great thing. But if you think about it, think about what those taxes mean to them, changing it up to, we help clients keep more of their hard-earned money to use, towards their dreams, right? So that has changed it around into, yeah, I worked hard for that money. I have that earmarked for dreams. And last one here, we make sure clients have adequate insurance coverage. So after that, we help clients identify solutions that protect what they value most. So you can see, going through your website and just making those tweaks could make a huge difference on how you're perceived when someone goes to your website looking for what types of services you offer. So I encourage you all to go back to your website and look at these things with that lens. So we put together a foundational content calendar. So you should have a goal in mind about how much you want to communicate each month. So blogging, 2 to 3 blogs a month is great. And I'm going to show you where you can get some content on that. But, at least 1 to 2 should be financial planning oriented. And then you can have some sort of timely or human interest type thing. But blogging, you can find content in a number of places out there. Email, 2 to 4 emails a month. One of those could be a newsletter. There's lots of timely headlines out there that, those we're finding the highest open rates as we look at the type of content that's out there. Whereas typically you get between 21 and 28, our timely content on breaking news is getting about 40. So people are really interested in what you're saying and and what that means to them. And then you can have 1 to 2 planning related general interests, look at what's coming up on the calendar. You can promote your blog. So there's plenty of places to find this type of content without writing each of these pieces. Social media, you'd want to be a little more active, 6 to 12 a month, some sort of combination of financial planning related. Sharing media articles is a great way to share content and really just be setting up why you think that's important for them. And then, social media is social. So you do want to have some non-financial pieces in there. And one of my personal favorites is those surprise and delight and wow moments, like finding 1 to 2 a quarter to find these random acts of kindness, appreciation, birthday and anniversaries. And I saw this great tip the other day, and I was talking about, and I was saying that, when you talk to a client, you should ask them, what are you most looking forward to that's coming up? Maybe it's, their grandson's big baseball game or something like that. Putting that in your calendar, and then so if that was happening on Sunday, putting it in your calendar on Monday to just reach back out to them like, hey, I knew the big game was happening. Tell me what happened. Thinking that you remember them. Those are those kind of surprise and delight moments. All right. So write content that clients are thinking about. So things here, navigating the cost of senior care, tips for financially preparing for long-term care. So this was kind of going through that list of the things that were most important to them and pulling things out from there. So the 7 most common estate planning strategy mistakes and how to avoid them. Using graphics is also a great way to get your point across. And thinking about timely topics, these two pieces came from our Do It For Me program, and they were requests from customers that called Susan and said, hey, can you really write something on the September effect? That's something that's super interesting and timely. And we were able to put a chart in there. That was one of the most popular pieces that we used then. And then coming up, we have a year-end financial checklist because we know that there's lots of things that they need to think about before the end of the year. So this would be something that was really interesting to them. And it's great to share articles from media outlets. You don't have to write it then, right? You're grabbing something of interest. These images here are from our mobile app curator. And so what it does is it pulls up timely newslines. So I've got headlines there at the bottom. What happens if the government shuts down? So that article was interesting. And what we found before we rolled out this new AI capability in there was that people would pull up these articles, they'd look at it and they'd sit there and they'd write a caption and then they'd erase that caption, then they write another caption, and then they would just stop. Because the most important part of sharing an article is not just sharing the article, but it's what you say about it. So you can see in that box there, it says, write text for me. So this is what some of our newest functionality here. So I pull up the article and I say, write it for me. And you can see over here, we use all of our social media best practices in there and we create these prompts. And so it'll look through the article and create them, and it'll use some emojis, not too many, use hashtags, the things that we've told them, and we've given them the voice of typical financial advisors. If you don't like that, you just say, rewrite it again, and then you can edit this. So it was really helped advisors share more articles and be more interesting about them. It comes up with all the, gives a summary of everything in there. So that's been a huge help in sharing articles on social media. And it's always important to sprinkle in some of that human interest type things. So we wrote this blog here, AI's role in shaping our tomorrow, look ahead. And so, as we know that your time is limited, and writing all this content that was in that plan can be overwhelming. Taking one thing and repurposing it in 3 different ways is a great content strategy. So we wrote the blog here, and then we summarized it into a shorter email that then we pushed out, and then it drove them back to the website. And then wrote, kind of that summary in social media that can be shared as well. So one piece of content that now I've used 3 different ways. And one of the most important things I say to advisors about social media is supposed to be social. So not everything is financial services or financially related. So things like this over here, sharing good deeds. This was just a special interest story that was super heartwarming, and lots of people engage with that piece of content. The next one is, finding a quote that you love, and this advisor wrote what that meant to her. So sharing motivation. And then this is a great place to brag. So anytime that you have any awards or anything like this, social media is a great place to share those. So most importantly is getting to your audience first. So, as they read these headlines, I saw some note. It was like, talking about headlines a week later doesn't cut it anymore, So one of the nice parts about FMG and our content, we have a whole content team, so that as things are breaking and as news is coming out, we've got a whole content team that is writing something for you. You can then go in. So this is about the government shutdown. So you can go in and use that as is to send out or edit it. I know personally, I always like to start with something to edit versus starting with that blank piece of paper. So finding some good content sources that you can take from to then edit and personalize and make your own. So if I was to summarize those kind of game-changing ways to create a content strategy, is to set your monthly goals to ensure consistency. So I've seen so many advisors, I've talked to so many advisors, and none of them have told me marketing or communicating with clients is a bad idea. But what they do tell me is, I don't have the time. I might write this beautiful newsletter and it was awesome, and I sent it out, and then I have to do it again, right? So that consistency and execution. So setting those goals and having a way of where you're finding that content will really help you there. So find timely topics to use for blogs, social media, and email, and be sure to leverage your time by repurposing that. You'll have different audiences too in each of those. Some might really like blogs, some might want that, just summary on social. And then AI is out there and it's helping you write content, but the emphasis there is help. You always need to start it, have the idea. Whenever I use AI, I'm typically writing it first. So getting that helping hand, whether it be from something like our mobile app curator to give you captions for your articles, that's a great way to gain some help there. And then using charts and graphs to convey complex information and expertise. So really what clients and investors want is the simple explanation, and pictures are always worth 1,000 words. So if you can simplify it with a picture or a graph, that will always help with connecting with them. So how to quickly source some timely content. I talked about a few of these ways, but find some blogs that you like. I have up here Y charts, look through them, summarize them, come up with, make it your own, but you can find inspiration in a number of different ways. We also have, a huge content library in FMG that advisors take that content, they personalize the blogs, they change those. So, find some good content sources that really align with the way you think. And so the Do It For Me program is one that we rolled out in the last year and a half or so. Susan and I had worked with so many advisors, and we'd give them all the best practices and the content strategy and where to find it. And they'd say, that's great, but can you just do it for me? And so that's really where this program came about. So our thought leaders, Susan Theater, Samantha Russell, putting together, this would be my ideal content calendar for this month. They write the content, and then it solves for consistency, execution, marketing know-how, because then you have a team that holds you accountable. So you meet monthly to talk about, the type of content that's in the calendar, anything specific to you. And then you have a team executing on your behalf as well. So the advisors in the program find that the timeliness, the content, they're gaining more referrals because the content is very good, it's consistent, and it's topics that their clients are interested in. So kind of in summary, referrals clearly is a huge growth strategy for advisors. They grow through NPS, which we talked about, emotional to measure client satisfaction and understand where you are, emotional intelligence, which really strengthens that relationship, and clear communications that build trust. So people want to, build trust with people who are simply answering their questions and giving them good information. All right, Allie, I wasn't looking at the chat. Was there anything that we want to bring up or questions that came up?
I have a few questions. So I have a few for me and a few for you, Amy. How about that? So, so the one question is, how do you figure out your own EQ? So I'll take that one, Amy, if that's okay. All right. So on the slide, the box chart slide where we talked about your business and then EQ is all around you, that was 8 of the 15 different subscales that make up emotional intelligence. So one way you can start, if I was going to say what to do today, tomorrow, and next week, maybe today, go back and reflect on just what we covered and say, okay, is this somewhere where I feel like I'm strong in these areas, or do I sometimes let emotions get the best of me in these 8? You can start there. What could you do tomorrow? You can start to be more aware of your emotions and your clients. And again, emotions not meaning you're erratic or flying off the handle. It just means emotions are present in our decisions, whether we want to admit it or not. That is something that we need to take into consideration as we're trying to serve clients more effectively. And then what you could do, you can actually assess. So what I do when I work with individuals, I will give them an individual EQ assessment, tell you where your strengths are, where you have areas to improve. improve, and then you can start to come together with a long-term plan of where you might be out of balance. The interesting thing about EQ is you're not supposed to just score off the charts. You're actually supposed to be in harmony in certain areas. So it's all about creating balance within you internally. And really, I love to work on balancing that out with an advisor's self-care. Like, how are you taking care of yourself as an advisor and filling up your own bucket? So that's what you get. So that's a good start on how you can figure out your own EQ. Look at those 8, see where you are. And then if you want more individualized support, we could do that. The other questions that came through, Amy, were, will X/Twitter be added at any time for posts? Is that something?
Right now, if they make it available for people to utilize their API, we're absolutely up for adding that back. They haven't made that really available. So, we'll keep monitoring that situation.
Okay. Tips for LinkedIn. Are there any tips that you can offer regarding LinkedIn and direct messaging? I'm combining two questions.
Sure. So there's the 80-20 rule. So for every one post that you post, you should comment or like someone else's. So it's called this like social giving, right? So if you post something and Allie comments back and I'm like, oh, well, that, I appreciate her posting back and liking that. So when I see her post next time, I'm more willing to post or comment on that. So social is about, being social and commenting on other people's. It's a giving it situation. And another thing is, to build your network, carving out to make 10 new networking requests each week. So I would go in, find, people that make that connection, and your network will just build exponentially. And it'll only take you finding those 10 connections and writing something to them. It could be 20 minutes, half hour of your day. And then, just really mixing up your social things like that you expect to become a thought leader by adding financial planning stuff, things like that. We do see that, a lot of the most engagement is more personal stuff, like dogs and babies get lots and lots of engagement. We wrote a post for our Do It For Me customers, and it was about Dog Appreciation Day, and there were some interesting things in there, and we had recommended that they put their own pictures in there. And so that same post looked so different on, on the other people who posted the cutest dog pictures and things like that. So, infusing some kind of fun in your social as well.
Okay. So, I'm going to say coming soon. The question is, where can we get an NPS for our clients? Anything else to say?
Yeah, you know what? Are some things that we're working on at FMG to make that available. So, that is something that is in the works, and hopefully we'll be talking about that at some point in the future.
Okay. So I have another one. Which AI platform do you recommend?
Oh, there's, I use a bunch of different ones for different things. So I personally like Claude for writing. There's Bard that's more like up-to-date information. They're kind of all changing now. So I use different ones for different things. Which ones are you recommending?
I have not used Claude before, so I had only used ChatGPT. So I am actually going to sign up because I know Susan's a big fan of Claude. And so I guess I will try them all and see what helps me, get inspiration. So
because they all have a little bit of different voice. Like you got to find one that that speaks to you, and then of course like Bard has that up-to-date information. So I use that more for research.
I mean, the short answer would be just work with you all, right? You'll take all the heavy lift out of it. It doesn't matter. So do you have a sample client survey? I don't know. Do you provide that? That's something.
We actually just did. So they're probably talking about, so we have created some surveys in the FMG platform based on customers asking like, hey, could you write a survey on like how much and what type of communications? We don't have an NPS survey in there, but right now. we have some surveys.
So I have one more, a couple more here. Being a small firm with a limited staff, how do you suggest putting this all into action? I'm thinking about outsourcing.
So the Do It For Me program that I talked about, that's a very good solution for a lot of our small market office. We just did a webinar with a lady who she's like, it's just me, my partner, and an assistant. So this program has really become another staff member because they're writing the content and they're executing on our behalf. And this particular firm had hired a part-time marketing person before and found that this really was the leverage they needed to get a more complete marketing, strategy out there. So outsourcing components of your marketing. And then, as I mentioned, like really kind of being smart about repurposing things and taking a helping hand where you can.
Yeah, I think, one thing that is a trend that we're seeing more is just that value of time and advisors commanding it in a better way than, maybe in the past having to juggle everything. Really, you have more options to outsource with quality providers than you ever did before. And so, I mean, I'm a byproduct of that too, right? People can't afford 100% of me. So 4 clients get 25% of me, so there is an ability to drive value to what you're trying to do. So I think, your firm is absolutely doing that. FMG is giving advisors value of a marketing team that they can get, that can take some of those stressful, again, eliminate stress, take care of yourself. If you're not a marketer by nature, don't try to become one tomorrow. Just, work with folks like us that love what we do. Testimonials, now that that's allowed, are you helping advisors crafting or navigating that conversation as they work with you?
We have, and each firm is a little bit different about how they are managing testimonials. So, we're really on top of looking at the rule, but, it really is to the broker dealers, but we can give best practices and things like that. So that has become way more part of our conversations.
That's great. And then a couple more, because first impressions matter when acquiring clients, how can we convey our EQ during our first conversations? I mean, the best part to begin with is that flexing your active listening skills. I think if you are just meeting someone for the first time and you're not sure of family dynamics, how they view and value money differently than how their partner or spouse views and values money, that would be really great to understand upfront and really would set you apart, because you would start to understand how they view money to empower their goals. So someone might be the charitable person in the family and the other one wants to save every dime for retirement. And how are you going to reconcile if their money values aren't aligned? So that's a tip from my buddy, Dr. Crosby. So he reminds us of those things, but that's also an active listening skill from an emotional intelligence perspective. So I think that you can kind of blend that and really go in and really start to understand how what's below the surface, and talk a little bit about the value of money to them individually, not assume that it's the same for the couple, because typically it's not the same. One spouse is going to have a very, very different view on money than the other, and what it's meant for.
Do you have any more, or we can end on that one, or
that was it.
I thought that was a really good one.
Yep, that was it. So thank you. What a fun time. I love Q&A. This was great. So
that was super fun. And Allie, I learned so much from you. For FMG, if you want to move forward and learn more about it, I have a QR code here that you can book in a demo. And then Allie, do you want to talk about how they can reach out to you?
Sure, absolutely. It's just, there's my website, amplifyyourvoice.studio, and I'm simply Allie at amplifyyourvoice.studio. So that's it.
Great. Well,
thank you.
Really appreciate everybody joining today. Allie, thank you so much for all this great information, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.